Okay, so I heard this stat and it just, wow, it really made me pause. A book selling 2.7 million copies in its first week.
Yeah.
That's apparently the fastest selling adult novel in like 20 years. It's not just popular, well, it's a moment.
It absolutely is. And that book is Onyx Storm,
Yep.
the third one in the Empyrean series, which is what we're diving into today.
Right.
And, this isn't just your standard fantasy fare. It's this huge global thing, mixing dragons, tricky diplomacy, and some pretty dark magic. It all kind of collides.
So our mission today really is to sift through, a bunch of articles, some research, our notes, and pull out the key stuff for you. We
Right.
want to explore what's really at the core of this book, why it's grabbing so many people.
Exactly. And it's going to be a fascinating discussion, I think. We'll touch on, the plot stakes, the characters, how it blends genres,
Yeah.
and just the sheer cultural buzz around it.
Okay, so let's start with the setting. If you've been following Violet through Bosjeth War College, well, things change. Big time. Onyx Storm basically throws us out of there pretty fast. We're suddenly on this, like, globe-trotting quest. Totally different feel.
And the situation driving that quest is pretty dire. Violet's main job now is trying to forge these really crucial alliances. Navarre needs backup against the Venin.
Ah, the Venin. The humans using that destructive earth magic. Always bad news.
Right. Very bad news. So it's this desperate race, really high stakes from the get-go.
And the quest itself, it gets specific, doesn't it? She's looking for, what, the 7th breed of dragon to power up these ward stones?
Exactly. That's the big strategic goal. But then there's the personal layer, which is just as intense.
It means Azedin.
Yeah, finding a cure for his Venin problem. Because he's, right on the edge. His soul's kind of hanging in the balance.
So the personal stakes feel just as massive as the sort of saving the world stakes?
Absolutely. And I think that's where the tension really sings in this book. You've got these huge external things happening, like friction between the Russian and Navarian riders. You've got sabotage popping up, alliances starting to crack.
Okay.
But then, yeah, the Gaden's internal fight against the Ven mirrors all that external chaos. It makes it all feel much more, I don't know, immediate, grounded almost, despite the epic scale.
Yeah, that mix of the huge geopolitical stuff and the really intimate character struggles, I think that definitely hooks people. It gives you dread, but also makes you care deeply. But, beyond the quests and the threats, for a lot of people, the real heartbeat of this series and Onyx Storm is the characters, their relationships.
Right.
Violet Sorrengail, she's still our lead, still resilient, still dealing with her physical vulnerability, which, interestingly, is partly inspired by Ray's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, right?
Yeah, that's a fascinating detail. Adds another layer to her whole strength isn't just a physical thing.
And she's constantly having to make these tough alliances, deal with betrayals. It's a lot.
And then there's Gaden,
Mm.
still dark, brooding, gallant. But now he's got this massive internal battle with the Venin corruption, trying to stay himself, trying to protect Violet while this thing is, like, eating away at him.
It adds this whole other dimension to him, makes him even more complex.
For sure.
But let's be real. For so many readers, it's not just him or her, it's them together.
Oh, absolutely. Their dynamic is magnetic.
Yeah.
It's the engine for a lot of the emotional investment.
Yeah, it shifts constantly, doesn't it? It can be really tender, then suddenly electric, and sometimes it's tangled up in all the politics, too. It's messy, in a good way, mostly.
Definitely drives the story forward.
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot forget the dragons.
Never. And Darna and Tarn.
Right, yes. They are basically main characters at this point. They bring the laughs that Big Sassy Cat's energy is spot on.
It really is.
But they're also, like, crucial emotional anchors for Violet and even Xaden sometimes. It's funny how these giant, powerful creatures can provide so much humor and heart.
It breaks the tension, gives you a breather. Though I have heard people say the cast gets pretty big.
That's fair. It's a common point. Lots of characters, sometimes tricky to keep everyone straight, especially with all the political factions and stuff.
Okay, so with all that going on, the quest, the characters, the dragons, how does it all come together in terms of, like, the feel of the book, the themes? It leans hard into the romantasy angle, right?
Oh, yeah. Big time. You get the sharp banter, the pretty intense intimacy scenes, and that classic enemies to lovers dynamic is still simmering away. That's the core emotional fuel.
It really works for a lot of people, that blend.
Definitely. And it's interesting how it uses those tropes. It's not just for the romance. It feels like it drives character development that actually impacts the main plot,
Yeah, that makes sense. But we should probably mention some readers do find the romantic dialogue maybe a little over the top, or cringy, as the kids say.
All right, that feedback is definitely out there. It's subjective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Depends heavily on your taste for that kind of heightened emotion in fantasy romance.
True. And beyond the romance, it does dig deeper into the world building, doesn't it? The magic systems, Venin, signets, the wards, and the politics get more complex.
It does try to expand the world significantly, which is ambitious. You see more of how the magic works, the different political landscapes.
But does it always land smoothly?
Well, that's where some other feedback comes in. Some readers feel the plot kind of wanders a bit sometimes, trying to balance the epic quest with setting up all the political pieces. It can occasionally make things feel a bit less focused or slow the pacing down.
Right, juggling a lot of balls.
Exactly. It's a tough balance in a big series.
But overall, the vibe seems to be fun, like escapist fun. People call it popcorn fantasy.
That's a good way to put it. It's fast-paced, definitely bingeable, lots of dragon action. Those comparisons like Hogwarts meets the Hunger Games, they capture that kind of high-energy, high-stakes feel.
Okay, so we've talked about the excitement, the characters, the feel. Let's get a bit critical. What are the clear strengths and maybe the areas where it, stumbles a bit for some people?
Sure. On the plus side, definitely the high-energy quest. New places, new magic, lots of twists that keeps you turning pages.
And that emotional core people are invested in Violet and Xaden deeply.
Absolutely. That connection is key. And the dragon's antics just add to that enjoyment factor. Plus, for dedicated fans, there are clever little Easter eggs scattered through the series that reward close reading. Makes the world feel richer.
Okay, but the flip side, what are the common critiques?
Well, some readers mention a middle sag. A feeling that the plot loses steam a bit in the middle, maybe weighed down by all the moving parts and the large cast we mentioned. Keeping track of everyone can get confusing.
Right, the cast size issue again?
Yeah. And, as we touched on, the romantic dialogue. For some, it just feels a bit much, maybe pulls them out of the story instead of deeper in.
It's a style thing, I guess.
It is. And then there's a more sort of literary critique. That while the quest is spectacular, like a blockbuster movie, it doesn't always dive super deep into the world-building nuances. Some compare the dialogue and interactions more to, like, MCU banter than the dense, intricate world-building you might find in classic epic fantasy.
Ah, okay. So it depends on what you're looking for. Spectacle versus maybe deeper lore.
Exactly. It raises interesting questions about genre expectations and how romantasy is evolving.
Gotcha. But regardless of those critiques, you can't deny the impact. It's just huge. We talked about the sales, but there were actual launch parties, midnight events, people showing up in costume.
Oh, yeah. It's way more than just a book release. It's a genuine cultural event for its fans.
It really is a phenomenon driven by author events. I think there was a big one in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And obviously, huge buzz on places like Book Talk.
Totally. You really see the passion, the community that's built up around this series. It's quite something.
So if we boil it all down, what's the takeaway on Onyx Storm?
I think at its core, it's this really passionately entertaining, high adrenaline ride, especially if you're already a fan of romantasy.
Right. So if you like action-packed quests, swoony, complicated relationships, dragons, definitely dragons, and political maneuvering with, a good dose of spice.
Then, yeah, it absolutely delivers. It hits those notes really effectively.
Yeah.
But if maybe you're looking for super meticulous, dense world building, or perhaps a more subtle, understated writing style,
It might feel a bit overwhelming or maybe not quite hit the mark for you. It wears its heart and its tropes very much on its sleeves.
okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive, Onyx Storm leaves us hanging, doesn't it? Big war looming, quests unfinished.
Definitely sets up for more. It leaves you anticipating what's next in this 5-book arc. And it makes you think, how does this blend of action, romance, politics keep millions hooked? What does its success mean for the future of romantasy itself? It's fascinating to watch unfold.